Hello YouTube, I am back with a story. If you guys watched my first video, I want to say thanks. It may not have been that enjoyable. It was my first video, and I'm learning. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more captivating than what I was then. But today, for my true crime story, I'm going to tell you about a case that I investigated where some knuckleheads decided to commit a home invasion impersonating DEA agents. These guys, posed as DEA agents to commit a home invasion. But first I want to talk about a little bit about trucking, because I kind of want to do that. Kind of want to give a little bit of each of trucking and police on the same videos. So today I'm headed towards Oklahoma City area with a load of cinder block. I'm currently westbound on Highway 412, just east of Tulsa, probably by about 30 miles maybe or so. I'm in Choteau, Oklahoma, in Mays County, if any of y'all know where that's at. But anyway, if there's anybody out there thinking about getting into trucking, and you want to do flatbedding, I would seriously consider doing your homework in flatbedding. To be honest with you, it's a whole lot of work for basically the same amount of pay, and there is also a lot of times when you're just sitting. And by all means, I am not a lazy person. I, as a cop, did not have any problems between overtime and my part-time jobs, putting in 60 to 70 hours every single week. So I'm not a lazy person by any means, and I'm also not afraid of physical work. But like I said, this flatbed stuff, it's just some work. I had my first load this week was a bunch of steel plates that I had to tarp. Rolling that big heavy tarp out is kind of a chore. And then you got to secure it all down to where you're not getting any flaps or air pillows or anything like that, because things like that will damage your tarp. And those tarps are not cheap. Basically, the tarp to cover a 53 foot load, about $1,000. And they're just not cheap, so you don't want to damage them. And also with flatbedding, you have hours that you pretty much have to keep. You can be loaded and unloaded pretty much between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you're not going to get to your destination until 3 p.m., 3:30, you're not going to get unloaded until the next morning. So you have to go find a truck stop and sit. I'm not going to say that's not going to happen in the other aspects of trucking, whether it's dry-van or power only, but it is going to happen. But at least with power only, you can pretty much run any day of the week and any time of the day. Distribution centers are typically going to be operating 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You can, if you get to a town at 6 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock at night, or midnight, or whatever, and you have time on your clock, you can slide in and pick up your load, and then go find a truck stop and sit or sleep for the night, and then start out the day after. Or if you have time on your clocks, you can get to driving. It's just a way to keep constantly constantly moving, which is what I like. I like to I like to be moving all the time. With that being said, I don't really have any intention of leaving flatbedding. I'm doing this as a favor. But if I were to start my own or have my own trucking company, I definitely wouldn't be flatbedding. Or if I was working for a big carrier, I wouldn't be flatbedding. I'm doing this for a very small operation, and I'll keep doing it because it is, it's a big favor. But anyway, that's my little tidbit on trucking today. Let's get on to my true crime story. I'm going to tell you about these four knuckleheads that committed a home invasion under the guise of them being DEA agents. Yes, that is right. They posed as DEA to do a home invasion. Just a little backstory on this. They thought they were going to be robbing an elderly couple that one of them worked for in the past, like a couple of jobs, like mowing the lawn, yard cleanup, something of that nature. And it was enough in the past that he really wasn't 100% sure where they lived. He just thought they lived at their target house. What they ended up robbing was, I think, 3 or 4 kids, college kids who lived in this house. Now, either they had the wrong house, the wrong street, or the elderly couple just didn't live there anymore. Never really found out that information, but that's what it was. I am going to throw out a little bit of a disclaimer before I get too far. Everything that I'm talking about on these true crimes, on these cases that I investigated, is 100% from memory. Okay, I don't have my reports, I don't have my notes, but when I testify, I do. So my testimony is what's going to be 100% correct. If I'm off a little bit on my story that I'm telling now, that's okay. It's not going to be drastically off to where it's going to change things. But I just don't want somebody later to come tell me, well, when you were telling the story, you said this, but during the report you actually said that. It doesn't completely match. And that's, that very well could happen, but it's just, like I said, it's just a disclaimer that I wanted to throw out there. But anyway, so they robbed these 3 college kids. They posed as DEA agents, invaded their house. They put all of the college kids down on the floor and secured them with zip ties, just like that would be done in a raid. Other than we're not going to use real zip ties, we're going to use flex cuffs. Zip ties are a lot easier than flex cuffs to break out of. You got to be pretty strong to break out of flex cuffs, which are basically just very thick, oversized zip ties that are made to hold your wrists together just like handcuffs. But anyway, so these college kids, they actually thought these people were DEA. If I remember right, they had windbreakers. I don't think the windbreakers said DEA on them. I think things would have gone a lot differently if they would have actually gone that far, because then there might have been some federal charges at that point, or if they would have shown a badge or an ID or things like that. I think they basically just kind of barged in saying, DEA, get on the ground. So they secured up these kids, and these kids thought they were DEA agents the whole time until they left in one of the kids' cars. That is when they figured out, hey, maybe these guys really aren't DEA. They got out of the zip cuffs, or they got out of the zip ties and called police. So anyway, even during during the home invasion, they even had two-way radios that they were communicating with, and there was, I think I remember one of them staying outside to act as a lookout, and they were telling the kids that they were going to bring in a canine to help search. They even asked if they had a cat or another dog or whatever, because that's something that canine officers are going to do before sending their dog into a house, if it's possible, and if they may ask if there's an animal inside, because they don't want their dog eating another animal, because that's pretty much what will happen. But anyway, they end up stealing marijuana that these kids had. I don't remember if they stole other things. I think they maybe like staged a TV up to be taken. I don't remember if they stole money as well. But what sticks out in my mind, and you'll understand why here in a minute, is the marijuana that they stole. And apparently it was some really good marijuana. So these kids, they leave, and these fake DEA agents, they leave in one of the kids' cars, and that's when they realize, oh wait, these aren't DEA agents. They were able to free themselves, and they called 911, which is how we end up getting the call. Me and my partners, there were probably 3 or 4 or 5 of us working that night. Typically, what happened is a couple of detectives went out on the case. Me and another detective stayed behind, and we would stay behind to either help out at the police station should they need something done there, or take another case. It's not uncommon at all at our agency that we would get 2 or 3 major cases that'll happen in one night, and with anywhere from 3 to 5 detectives, that can make us pretty busy. So it does happen. But anyway, so while the officers and detectives were at the victim's house taking the report, the victims see the suspects drive by. And they said, hey, that's the people that robbed us. So they went and pulled them over and took them in custody, brought them to the police station. Best thing that those suspects could have done. Absolute 100% the best thing. Made the case extremely easy to work. Had they not came back, it would have been a forensic case. We wouldn't have had hardly any information other than just a generic 4 white guys committed this robbery in, I guess 3, because 3 were inside, 1 was outside. So they would have they were just average, ordinary looking people. It wouldn't. It's not like we could. There just wasn't anything special about them. That they could give us. So anyway, a forensic case would take 6 months minimum to work. We would submit the flex cuffs to the laboratory for DNA analysis. And back then, 10, 12 years ago, it would have taken 6 months to get results back, if you could get any results back. Because it's a process, and at that time, there were about 3 or 4 labs in the entire state that processed DNA evidence. And they processed DNA evidence for every single law enforcement agency in the state. So them coming back made the case tons easier. So they get transported to the police station, and at that point, me and the other detective, our job is going to be to start interviewing these suspects. So I walk into this interview room, and I see this kid who I knew. He either worked at a fast food joint that I had done security at, or he had friends there and hung out there, something. But I had quite a bit of enough interaction with him that that a year later I'm able to walk into a room under these circumstances and look at him and say something to the nature of, "Are you kidding me?" Because he recognized me immediately as well. And immediately he apologized and went into full confession mode. Started telling me how it was his brother's idea that they do this. It was his brother's idea that they go back. And 3 of the 4 suspects actually ended up cooperating. The main guy, he lawyered up, didn't want to talk. That's fine. I never took any of that crap personal. If they lawyer up, that's their right, and I gotta respect it. You know, it's not my job to basically have an opinion about it. You know, I always tried to remain neutral in my investigations. Don't want to talk to me? Okay, not a big deal. But anyway, so they were all sitting around. The one guy, he had the idea of, hey, we're gonna need some money, and they would live a lot of times in some of these like really cheap rundown hotels that were like $25, $35 a night. You know, and there would be 4 of them splitting that bill. You know, maybe they would have a job to where they could help pay for the room, or maybe their job was to go out and steal things and resell them for cash so they could pay for the rooms for the night. But that's honestly how a lot of people live, you know, from hotel to hotel. I mean, it is. And sometimes people are legit people. Sometimes they're drug users. Sometimes they're thieves. Sometimes they are sex workers. But that's just the way of life. You know, they just literally move from hotel to hotel. But anyway, so they thought they were targeting this elderly couple, but ended up being college kids instead. So during their quote-unquote raid, they found some weed, and like I said, apparently it was some really good weed, because they went and smoked it. And I seem to remember the kid that I knew told me that it was really good weed, and it was good enough that his brother, who was the mastermind of the whole thing, wanted to go back. They wanted to go back to see if these kids were still in zip ties. Now, mind you, they left the scene, drove clear across town, probably 6 miles maybe, to their hotel, through town. So it's not like they're going to get there in 6 minutes. You know, it's going to take them 15 minutes at probably the at least to get there. They sit around, smoke this really good weed, and then comes up with the idea, let's go back. Let's go back and see if they got more weed, and go ahead and take that TV. And like I said, I think the TV was something that they wanted to come back for. That kind of sticks out in my mind. That might be one of the things I might be inaccurate about. That's how, just kind of to gauge the inaccuracy possibility. That's really about it. But the key thing is they wanted to go back to see if they had any more of this really good weed. And so then that's when they go back and they get made, identified, and stopped and transported to the police station. And at that point, sending zip ties in for DNA might be something that we would do. But at that point, we have their DNA that we can actually compare to, and we don't have to do the whole investigation to where the scientists would swab the zip tie, and then they would see if that swab contained DNA. If it contained enough of a sample of DNA, they would then enter it into a computer system to determine whether or not there's a possible match. And then that's how basically a forensic case would come together. If there's no match in the computer system, then it gets ran every once in a while, about a half a dozen times a year or so. But if there's never a match, there's just never a match, and the case is never solved by that method. But anyway, since we had them in person, we're in custody, we're going to, one of the things that we could do is get a known sample of their DNA and have it compared directly to the samples that are on any DNA evidence that's on the zip ties. But anyway, so they, sorry about that. I got on a tangent talking about laboratory. Maybe I can talk about how DNA cases work as well, because I do have a really cool case about DNA. I mean, I'm telling you guys, if you've made it this far, listen. Come back. I've got some stories to tell. Sometimes I think they're interesting. Sometimes I think, it's just my day-to-day stuff. Because literally, this is the kind of stuff that I would do multiple times. Okay, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I got to investigate. But anyway, so they got made and brought in, and 3 out of the 4 gave confessions. I don't remember if I think they all served some sort of jail and or prison time. I don't recall what that was. To be honest with you, when I work a case, I send it up to the prosecuting attorney's office and let them decide whether or not they can charge it. And then if they charge it, I'm just done. Unless they have other investigations for me to do, I'm just done, and I move on to the next case. And I don't have time to follow every single case like that. It would just be impossible for me to do. I just do not have that kind of time, or did not have that kind of time. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool case. I promise you, like I said, if you come back, I'm going to have some pretty cool stuff to talk about. And it's times like these that I wish I would have kept a journal. I have one of these memories that I can think about something that I did 12 years ago and can almost tell you verbatim everything that I did. And I may not be able to recall like dates and times and names and things like that, but I can definitely recall enough information to make it pretty interesting. But anyway, if you guys like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to. I'm going to do these videos. I'm going to call them my 2 cents, because sometimes I might talk about some political stuff, even though I'm not a real political guy. There are some current events that I think that I can add my perspective on, especially police investigations. And I will tell you, I am not biased, okay? I will tell you right now, if a cop's wrong, they're wrong, period. I don't support people just because they are like me, okay? Just because we did the same profession. Nope, that's how you get in trouble. And if a person's wrong, they're wrong, period. But until next time, you have a good night.